This is Adam Marburger, and this is Humans That Build. Real conversations with real people, not just about what they've built in the world, but what had to be built inside them first. No hype, no shortcuts, just humans doing the work. Humans That Build, real people, real work. Welcome to another episode of Humans That Build, where we share interesting stories from interesting people that are just making an impact on the world. And we're just coming off a really fun holiday weekend. You know, when this airs, it's going to be probably a month from now, but we just had an incredible 4th of July weekend. 250 years as a country, pretty remarkable. I got to spend a lot of time with my kids, my friends, had a beverage or two, a little too much sun, but I'm grateful to be back in the office so I can share more stories with you guys so we can help motivate, inspire to just do more in the world. Today's guest, I'll tell you, you're in for a treat. This guy, the best way to explain this gentleman is fierce, bold, and unfiltered. This individual's seen a lot. He's been through a lot. He's done a lot. He's still continued to do big things in the world. So without further ado, I want to introduce you to my dear friend, Max Zanan. Max, welcome to Humans That Build, my friend.
Hey Adam, thank you. Thank you for having me. And you're right, July 4th, 250th anniversary of the greatest country on planet Earth. And we get to live through that is absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, the weather was great too. The weather was great. It was the only thing that wasn't great. You've been to my house actually, so decent sized house. It runs on a geothermal system. And once a year, when it starts to get 100 degrees, the thing shuts down. A couple days ago, it was 91 degrees in my house. This morning, when I woke up, they have to come back out. It was 82 degrees in my house. So summer's great until the dang AC stops working. So I'm dealing with a little bit of that today. But enough woe is me. Let's talk about you. There's a reason I really wanted to have a conversation with you. You bring a different background, different insight. As a matter of fact, you don't even live in the United States anymore, which we'll go there here in a little bit. But let's talk about where you're from. You know, you're one of my only friends that escaped communism. You're one of my only friends that grew up in Russia. That know things. You lived a life that I'll never understand. So let's talk about your upbringing. Let's talk about your childhood. Let's talk about who are you? Where are you from? Tell us a little bit about the beginning journey of Mr. Max Zanan.
So, I mean, you know that this year I am turning 50. So I came to America when I was 16. And it was in 1992, which was the year after the collapse of the Soviet Union. So my life in Moscow, can be broken down into two periods. The formative years, right, where Soviet Union was a functioning empire. And then, the last 3 years, meaning going from 89 to 92, where I got to witness a collapse of an empire in real time. So there were good and the bad. And the good about growing up in the Soviet Union was that education was paramount. So just by going to a regular school, and in the Soviet Union, unlike America, you actually go to the same school for your entire career. So from the first grade to the 11th grade, you go to the same school and you are in the same class, taking the same subjects with all of the kids that you started when you were 7 in first grade and you go through school with them for the next 10, 11 years. So the relationship that you get to build with your classmates, meaning now, right? All of my friends that I went to school with, we met in 1983 when we were 7 years old, and we're still friends.
That's amazing.
And there's something about going to the same school for 10, 11 years. Because in
Yeah.
America, right, and you have three daughters, right? It
Mhm.
probably drives you crazy, right? First, you got to drive her to like elementary school, then to middle school, then to high school. And these are three different buildings, three different addresses, right? She
Yeah.
has three different sets of classmates because there's no guarantee, right, that everybody from her elementary school went to the same middle school.
Yeah.
So in that sense, it was phenomenal. And back then, and I couldn't understand it back then, but now I can say it with 100% certainty. Soviet Union empowered teachers to do the parents' job, something that we do not have in America, right? Because teachers in America are not empowered to discipline kids.
Yeah.
Right? There'll be a lawsuit, there'll be a class action lawsuit, there'll be termination, there'll be anything except for what you as the parent want, right? You want your kids to be disciplined. And the discipline was absolutely bananas, right? And every summer I would go to a summer camp, but it would be like the communist version of the summer camp, right? Where again, you had strict discipline. And, when you're growing up, you probably hate it, right? Because they're making you get up, they're making you clean the territory, cut potatoes, right? Like participate in sports. Everything is under duress because as a kid, all you want to do is have fun, right? And just hang out with friends. But then, now that I'm an adult, I'm going to be 50 years old. I think majority of my success in life I owe to this discipline
Yeah.
that Soviet Union education system instilled in me.
Yeah.
So I don't have an option, of saying, well, screw it, I'll do it later, right? It needs to be done and it will be done. And it doesn't matter if I'm sick. It doesn't matter if I'm on vacation. It doesn't matter if I'm having dinner, right? It'll get done.
Yeah. Now, did you ever get in any trouble when you were younger? I mean, did you ever, what was that like? Were you rambunctious or were you a pretty good classmate, pretty good student?
Again, you live under such strict discipline. It's almost like being in prison, right? Like you're a prisoner in that school, and every teacher is a correction officer besides being a teacher. And that
Yeah.
correction officer has all the authority in the world to sit you down, explain facts of life to you. And the biggest leverage that they had would be if you don't do what we tell you to do, we're going to tell your parents
Yeah. We've
because
gotten
they knew
soft. I mean,
that the
yeah, we're
parents
soft.
would always back the teachers up.
Yeah, we're here right now, and I see it firsthand. And I'm guilty. I'm guilty at some level with not being as strict. I'm more strict today than I was yesterday, metaphorically speaking. Like my firstborn, I should have been a little harder on her. I'm dealing with some stuff with that now. Um, But at the end of the day, I want to teach my kids discipline structure. When the teacher says something, if an adult says something, if a grandparent says something, if one of my friends, an adult asks, you listen. Kids today, I mean, it's rogue. I mean, there is a severe lack of respect and discipline in the younger generation. I mean, it's severe.
Well, also keep in mind, you and I are pretty much the same age, right?
Yeah.
And we were fortunate that when we went to school, we did not have access to social media.
No,
We
praise
did
God
not
for
have
that.
an iPhone in our pocket. And there was very little distraction because of it.
Yeah.
Now, it's not just the teachers that don't have the authority to discipline your kids. Your kids are getting information, from social media platforms that you cannot vet,
Yeah.
right? You have no idea what they're watching on TikTok or Instagram.
You're 100% correct.
And I'm not saying that they're watching bad stuff all the time, but I guarantee you that they're not watching the good stuff all the time.
Well, or they're getting misinformation that they deem to be fact. And that's where I butt heads. I'll be in casual conversations with my daughters and they're sold on they think they know and they're so far from the truth. It's scary. I mean, it really there's so much misinformation out there. It's scary.
Another problem is that, again, another problem, you and I were fortunate, forget social media, right? We didn't have Google, we didn't have ChatGPT. So if you were given a homework, there was only one way to do it, right? You had to actually study and do it. Right now you get into this ridiculous situation where most likely your daughter is using ChatGPT to do her homework,
Could
but on
be.
top of it, her teacher is using ChatGPT to grade that homework,
Oh
right?
boy.
So,
Oh,
so before, think about it this way. The only reason in America you needed to get a bachelor's degree to get any type of a job, right? Because it doesn't matter what you major in. You and I can major in basket weaving, right? Or underwater welding. It doesn't matter, right? You just need to show a bachelor's degree to be considered for an interview at an entry level job in any industry, right? And the reason that degree was necessary because it showed two things, three things. It showed discipline, right? You showed up for 4 years, you took your courses, you passed them, and because of that, you know how to read and write. And maybe you have a little bit of critical thinking. The rest they were going to teach you on the job. Now, imagine that you are hiring a college graduate and they show you that they were like a straight A student. They got a bachelor's degree in, I don't know, Greek philosophy. And on the surface, you think, oh my God, this is a really bright kid in front of me. If I give them all the tools, they can probably be very successful in my business. But in reality, you have someone in front of you who never even opened a book. ChatGPT did
yeah.
all the work.
Yeah. That's pretty scary to actually think about it now. I mean, it's really scary. But let me ask you here because I want to talk about your path to the United States. So, what was the thing that led you over to the United States? You left it, I think you said 16 years old. So, what was the thing that led you here? How did you get here? What was that process like? And what was it like when you got here? I mean, were you just kind of like blown away when you got to the United States? I'd love to hear that.
So I was blown away because when I came to the States, I lived in Brooklyn and I went to high school in Brooklyn. And when you live in the Soviet Union, right, and when they show you on TV what the evil empire looks like, right, they always show you like Manhattan or Chicago, the skyscrapers, and then you get to Brooklyn thinking that the whole country is like that, right? And if you ever been to Brooklyn, right, it's two stories.
Yeah,
It's two
yeah,
stories. It doesn't look like anything that I was expecting seeing, New York, Chicago, Philadelphia on TV. So to me, that was a huge cultural shock that, you know, skyscrapers don't exist everywhere.
yeah,
And then I went to high school, right? And that was the biggest shock because, listen, in the beginning of our conversation, I mentioned that Soviet Union put a lot of emphasis on education, whether it's history, literature, math, chemistry, physics, doesn't matter, right? And I'll be the first to admit, I was not a good student. I'm not the brightest star in the sky. And, think of me as a C student at best in the Soviet Union. So I finished high school in Brooklyn. I went for 3 semesters, right? And I finished high school with a silver medal, not because I'm bright, right? But because the educational standards, even back then, was so much lower in American high schools compared to the Soviet Union that it was mind blowing.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was what was it like as far as the culture? Like what was your first your first day of school like? You're from Russia, you're here now. What how long did it take to get kind of acclimated to this culture here?
I'll be honest with you, it took 2 years because
Okay.
everything was a shock. Everything was. I'll give you 2 examples. First, there is no uniform in America when you go to high school. And in the Soviet Union, there's a uniform that you wear from day one to the last day of school. And not wearing a uniform is not an option. You don't get into school. You get thrown out if you show up without a uniform. Right. So all of a sudden I have this freedom to just like come in jeans. Yeah, which again, I think uniform is good because it shows discipline. It shows uniformity. It kind of even reduces probably some social status differences.
Agreed 100% with that. I love that part of it.
You know, and another shock for me was the availability of everything imaginable in a supermarket, right? Because when Soviet Union was falling apart, there were food shortages. You couldn't get anything. Like imagine going to a store and just empty shelves. So I come to Brooklyn and, my mother says, go to the supermarket and buy mayo. So I go to a supermarket and I'm at that shelf, right, where the mayo is, and I'm completely frozen, right? Because in the Soviet Union, I would be lucky if there was mayo for sale, right? And there would be only one kind of mayo, right? And all of a sudden, I'm standing in front of the shelf and no BS, Adam. I think there were like 20 different kinds of mayo, right?
Yeah.
And I'm completely paralyzed, right? Like, how do you make a choice?
I mean, we do. We've got lots of options here. We've got lots of options here. Um, so talk to me about your path because you're a high level entrepreneur. That's one thing that I left out. You've built a wonderful business for yourself, and it didn't happen overnight. It was years of hard work. You had to learn the customs here. You had to kind of find yourself. You had to learn your way around. What was it that led you to the industry that you and I have so much in common with, the automotive industry? Tell me kind of how that happened. How did you get into that path of the automobile industry?
Listen, I think the best thing about life is the fact that it's unpredictable, right? And I think if somebody sat you down when you were 15 and asked, Adam, what would you like to be when you grow up? I think Ascend Dealer Services would be not on the list, right? It would be something else.
Yeah.
Maybe a police officer, right? Maybe a doctor, maybe an attorney, maybe an astronaut, right? Anything but Ascend Dealer Services. Okay.
Yeah.
So to me, it was very similar, right? I read a good book about first generation immigrants, and usually there are three-way out of low level socioeconomic level that you encounter when you're a first generation immigrant. Doesn't matter where you're from, right? And the three ways are usually either you become a doctor, a lawyer, or a computer programmer. Because these three paths are available to you and they kind of get you to make a living. So medicine was out for me because I suck at biology, chemistry. and I'm afraid of blood. Right. So that's it. Computer programming, I suck at math, physics, I'm out. Right. So the only viable path was to become an attorney. So I said, okay, what else can I do? So I went to college, and then I went to law school. And the best thing I've ever done in my life is to drop out from law school.
Okay.
And a lot of people don't have the balls or the testicular fortitude to do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they already committed that they're going to finish that 3 years of law school and become attorneys. And, they usually take out a student loan to pay because tuition is not cheap if you want to be an attorney. So I go to law school and I immediately, you have to trust your gut feeling, and most people cannot do that, right? And even at that time, and we're talking about, I think, 99, 98. So I was, you know, 22 years old. I immediately understood that law career is not for me. Even though I could have finished and I could have become an attorney and probably could have made a good living doing it, I understood there would be a life wasted because I would never enjoy it.
Yeah.
So, because there's such great emphasis on education in the Soviet Union and, in the family, if you grow up there, that bachelor's degree alone is assumed. Like you got to have it, right? So anything above and beyond would be better. So just to get that off my back, I actually got a master's degree after I dropped out from law school in security management. Not security management that you're thinking about, like on Wall Street. I'm talking about James Bond type of.
Okay. Okay.
And I figured, I would make a wonderful spy, right? I'm bilingual, I'm articulate, I love America, like there would be no better spy than Max Zanan. The problem that nobody tells you about, and again, because there's no chat GPT in Google, is that in order for you to be a spy, you got to have top secret clearance. In order for you to have top secret clearance, you have to be born in America.
Yeah. Well, out.
Right. So I qualify for secret clearance, which will never make you a spy, right? At the best, I can like hang out next to them, maybe serve them tea and coffee and sandwiches, right? That's as far as secret clearance will get you. So now I have this kind of useless master's degree on my hands that I cannot convert into a job, right? So what do? Right? And of course, around the corner from John Jay College, where I got my master's degree, is a Volkswagen dealership. And I think you know this better than anybody, right? If you can fuck up a mirror, right, during the interview for a sales job, you're going to get hired on the spot with no prior experience, with nothing, you know.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened to me. I was hired on a spot. I never sold anything in my life. I did not know anything about cars. I still don't know anything about cars. But I got to give credit to Potamkin organization because they really invested time and effort into training me and other salespeople. So it wasn't like, hey, there's your desk, go figure it out. They
Yeah.
actually like walked you through the process. It was repetitive, and It was
And that's
fascinating.
rare too for those listening and those that'll eventually watch. In the 90s, in the mid 90s, late 90s, early 2000s, I had a dealer group that invested into training. I did, but a lot of dealers, and I don't want to say most, but maybe most dealers didn't. It was here's your desk, go find a customer and
And
get them
sell
to
them a
say
car.
yes. Yeah, it's like that's how everybody was trained. Continue, Max, but I just want to make that point. That is fact, baby.
So and again, listen, maybe it sounds not what your listeners want to hear, right? Because listen, everybody grows up with some crazy aspirations of being an astronaut and cardio surgeon, right? Rarely somebody grows up saying that, I want to be a garbage man or I want to sell cars for a living, right? Just don't do that. However, I the moment I sold my first car, I experienced an adrenaline rush that never went away of delivering that car, seeing the tail lights, leave the
Yeah.
showroom. And then I got my first paycheck. And Adam, let me put it to you this way. My dream, and we're talking about like me finishing college, this is, having my master's in 2001, right? My dream was to make $50,000 a year.
Yep.
And if I got a job, right, and I made 50,000, I think I would be the happiest person in the world. So I, start selling cars, and then I see my paychecks, right? And I'm like, oh my God, there's no end to this. What 50,000?
Yeah.
You can just print money selling cars.
Well, the thing is too, what's beautiful, like Max, that story, I relate to at a high level. Well, I'm also a proud college dropout. For those listening, I'm not saying drop out. You shouldn't drop out if you're in school and stay in school, get your degree. Nothing wrong with education, but I dropped out because I was in my microeconomics class and I could remember all of my customers' last names and I remembered the commission dollar amount. And it was the 21st of the month. Still had a couple, at least a handful of selling days left. I had over $7,000 made for the month, and I'm like 20. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, what am I doing? Like, what? I don't even really know what I want to do out of college. Like, and I'm already making more money than my parents. And so I walked away to pursue a career. And what you said too, the best part about it, money's awesome. Making money is cool, but really helping a customer with their transportation needs, you get somebody that comes in that maybe is confused or stressed or they don't like the process and you get to make a friend and calm them down, find the right vehicle for them and then help them through that process. And then hopefully the finance department doesn't screw it up and then they leave and you talked about seeing the taillights leave. That is a rush. That's a damn good feeling is what that is. Yeah, the commission's great, but just selling a 20, 30, 50, $100,000 piece of merchandise, pretty awesome.
Yeah, but listen. Besides the money and the adrenaline rush, you get a unique sense of accomplishment because car business is extremely competitive, right? I don't care where you live, right? There's a car dealership probably every 5 miles, right? So as a customer, you have an option of just saying no and going to another dealership. So when the customer says yes to you, right, that's an accomplishment. That means you were good enough at your job, right? Because if you weren't, they just say, "Hey, Adam, sorry, we have to think about it. See you later," right? So it gives you this incredible sense of accomplishment, but it also builds character. And I'll tell you a crazy story. This is a true story. How car business builds character if you end up in the right organization. So they had a crazy rule in my dealership that if there was a sales call and the caller asked for the sales manager, a sales manager would never pick up the phone. It was considered to be a regular sales call. So a salesperson had to answer that. So I answer the phone, and the other person on the line says, "Are you a sales manager?" So we were trained to say, "Yes, I am the sales manager." This is 2001, probably November, December. So a couple of months after 9/11. So the person on the phone says, "This is Police Commissioner Carrick. I will be in your dealership in 10 minutes to buy a car for my child. Wait for me by the door." I said, "Okay, probably a prank call." I have nothing better to do anyway. So I said, "Okay, I'm going to stand by the door. I'm going to stand by the door anyway, right? Just to wait for it up." So literally 10 minutes goes by and Police Commissioner Carrick pulls up to the dealership, walks in and says, "Are you Max?" I said, "Yes." He says, "Are you a sales manager?" I said, "Yes." And he said, "I need a Volkswagen Jetta for my son." And it was like a unique configuration. We didn't have it in stock, so we had to swap it. And the swap took probably 3 weeks, right? Because there were only two cars like that in the entire country. So he leaves the deposit. We do a courtesy deal. I remember it like yesterday. We charged him $750 over invoice. So believe me, it's not a moneymaker, but it's really good for my ego, right? Like, police commission, this is a national hero after 9/11. Right. So 3 weeks go by, the car comes in, I call him, and I said, police commissioner, your car is here. Please come in to pick it up. He says, "No problem. I'll be there later today." So at the time, we did not accept personal checks, and most dealers didn't, right? So police commissioner Carrick walks in, looks at the car, loves it, uh, and he writes me a personal check for the entire balance. And I go to the desk, and I know I'm going to be yelled at, screamed at. It's going to be tough, right? Because we don't take personal checks. I know it. They know it, right? But what am I supposed to do, right?
Right.
So I walk over with that personal check, and the working partner says, "Max, I know that you know that we don't take personal checks." I said, "I know. You don't have to remind me. I know." Okay. I said, "But put yourself in my shoes. What are you going to do?" He says, "This is what I want you to do." He says, "Go back and ask the police commissioner, the national hero, to call his bank, put the phone on a speaker, and listen to his balance. And then come back to the desk and let me know what the balance is."
That's a tough
So
one.
talk about building character, right?
Oh man.
So I'm going back. I mean, Adam, like my entire body is shaking, right? And I go back and I said, "Police commissioner, I apologize, but my manager told me to ask you to get on the phone." And the guy just gets on the phone. Like no commotion, no pushback. He gets on the phone, puts him on a speakerphone. They give me the balance. I go back to the desk and I give the balance to the working partner. And he looks at me and he laughs. He says, "Max, you did something impossible." He says, "I don't care what the balance is. I know the guy is good. He's a national hero." He says, "And even if his check bounces, I'm going to put him on the front page of Daily News the next day." He says, "But the fact that you had the testicular fortitude to go and do that, you are the man who champed the heavyweight contender." He says, "Forget the commission. I'm going to give you a $500 bonus."
Yeah.
You know?
It's funny how this business can totally build character. I mean, back in the day, like, I mean, back, we're talking years ago. Our industry's incredibly, incredibly professional. Culture's fantastic. Most stores. There's some that are still a little bit behind times. But I mean, back in the day, if a customer didn't have their check on them or a debit card or a credit card, you'd get their watch or a piece of jewelry or you'd ask for something. It's just crazy the things that used to happen that don't happen anymore. And the fact your sales manager, so those listening that aren't familiar with the automotive industry, the desk is where the sales managers sit to work up deals to give pricing to salespeople to give to customers. But your desk was probably back there dying laughing at you, Max, just waiting for you to come back with egg on your face, probably that you getting yelled at. Oh, I love it. I love it. Oh man. So let's ask this. So you were very good in sales, worked your way up to running stores because I want to get in to you leaving the country. But before we do that, let's talk about your career. You then worked up the ranks through running stores, then you started a business. Walk us through that.
So I ended my retail career in October of 2008 when financial crisis basically was through the roof. By that time, I was running three dealerships. We had over 150 employees. Uh, we're selling a good amount of cars, uh, and it just stopped. Right, like the date of September 15th of 2001 is etched in my memory because that's the day when Lehman Brothers filed for bankruptcy and lending froze. Right,
Yeah.
so like you could be in a dealership and the customer can walk in with an 800 credit score and you couldn't get them done. Right, just lending froze. And I was by that time I realized that I am completely burned out. Right, I'm burned out like there's no tomorrow. I'll give you an example. In 2004, I worked 361 days a year. I only was off 4 days because we were closed 4 days a year: Christmas, New Year's, Easter Sunday, and Thanksgiving. So I was there at 7 o'clock in the morning as a general manager, and I lived in Manhattan, and I had a parking garage in my building. And just to put this in perspective, right? In 2006, I was paying $900 a month to park my car there. Just adjust that for inflation, right? And that parking garage would close at midnight and open at 6 o'clock in the morning. And half the month, even though I was paying $900 a month to park my car there, half the month I parked on the street because I couldn't make it before 12.
Wow.
You know, so I was
I can
completely
see why you
burned.
got burnt out. I can see why you got burnt out. Yeah.
But it was very satisfying because I ended up running the highest volume and the most profitable Mitsubishi dealership in America out of nowhere. I was 20 minutes behind JFK Airport. And if you know New York, there is no public transportation there. You cannot pull people from Brooklyn or Queens, right? They just can't get there unless they drive there. And I somehow managed to pull people from as far as New Jersey. And it was phenomenal. It was very competitive. It was also a great exercise in building character and managing people and being able to convey an idea to your sales staff, to your sales managers, to your F&I managers that yes, we're located in the middle of nowhere. Yes, we have like a nothing franchise, right? But I believe that we're going to be number one in the country. Took me 11 months. In 11 months, we were number one in the country,
It's amazing.
both profit and unit wise.
Love it. Love it. And then what made you decide then to go out and start your own agency? Because, for those that don't know, you have your own agency. You work with uh, dealers all over the country. You help them with their F&I production. You're a reinsurance. We don't go too deep into the whole profit participation, but you basically build wealth in tax-friendly environments for car dealers, right? So what made you say, hey, this is what I want to go do?
again, listen, when I was in retail, that part of business was completely unfamiliar to me. I understood that finance managers sold products and made money, but I really had no idea where the money was going, and I also realized that I know nothing except for car business. So somehow I got an offer to sell chemicals to dealerships. It was like a Purell type of deal for your car, to sanitize the interior.
Yeah.
And I started walking in because my job was to sell it to service department. So I started walking into dealerships, and I cannot tell you how many times I was thrown out.
Yeah.
Right? And talk about building character and coming from sales, getting used to hearing no, right? Like you and I are not offended by no.
Yeah.
But you take a regular civilian, there's so much rejection they can take before they have a mental breakdown.
Mm-hmm.
And slowly but surely, from chemicals, I got into F&I products. Then I learned reinsurance, and then in 2017, I wrote my first book, and it's called Perfect Dealership, right? And I spent a year working on that book uh, because I understood what it should look like, right?
Yeah.
But by being in dealerships every day, I definitely knew that 99% of them were not that.
Yeah.
So I figured I'm going to put on paper a blueprint. And, when the book was ready, it's a nerve wracking experience. And I'm sure you know this, right? Because when you write your first book and you publish it, you have no idea if anybody's going to buy it.
Yeah.
And what will it do to your ego and your confidence if nobody bought it?
Yeah. Right.
So again, you put everything on the line, you roll the dice, and you publish. And what is the name of that large auto group in Ohio? They have Ford, Rick Reichard.
Yeah.
So on the first day when the book was published, I got an order for 400 books that was purchased by one person.
That's awesome.
It was Rick Reichard.
That's amazing.
And I called him because we don't know each other, right? We don't do business together. We don't know each other. We just, maybe cross paths on LinkedIn. And he says, I ordered 400 copies because I have 400 employees. And I want every single employee to read it.
That's awesome. That's amazing. It just takes
You
that
know,
one thing. Yeah. Yeah. And I know you've had some success. You've written several books since then. But, here's, uh, writing a book is it's satisfying, but it also is nerve wracking. Everything you just said, there's so much truth to that. It's like, what if nobody wants to hear what I have to say? What's that going to do? Right. But it's funny how things work out. And it's amazing how many lives you touch by putting your words out there. And this is a good message for those out there that are kind of afraid or apprehensive. Just do it. I mean, just do it. You want to write the book, write the book. I mean, get yourself. What is the worst thing that happens, right? You don't sell a bunch. It is what it is. I mean,
but it
rejections
has
are
to be on your bucket list, Adam. I
yeah,
think,
I agree with that too. I agree with that. Yeah, if it's something on your bucket list, you don't want it. The last thing, what scares me, and this terrifies me of being unable to work, physically unable, mentally unable. I'm in my dying years. I'm on my deathbed. I look back and there's like 7 bucket list items I didn't do. What? That's insanity to me. I won't allow it. I just won't allow it. And let's talk about a few things real quick, Max, for the sake of time here as we descend on this conversation, which I'm absolutely loving here. You ended up moving to Spain a handful of years ago. So you start in Moscow, you escape to get over here to the United States, and now you're over in Spain. Tell us kind of how's that going over there? What was your kind of ambition for that? And tell us a little bit about where you're at.
So I live in southern Spain in a town called Marbella. It's the best microclimate in Europe, 325 sunny days a year. It never goes below 55. Food is amazing. People are amazing. Pace of life is the complete opposite of New York. And what happened is that I bought this apartment back in 2018, thinking that maybe one day I'm going to retire in my 60s, 70s and come here and enjoy my, last years. That was the plan. And then COVID happened, and I lived in New York City in Manhattan, right? And without getting political, the atmosphere during COVID in Manhattan was not healthy.
Yeah.
And at the time, the borders were closed, right? So you couldn't travel outside of the country. So even though I'm an American citizen, I have an American passport, I can't go to Spain because I just wanted to escape the insanity of New York City. So turns out that you could only if you were a resident of Spain. So out of necessity, I applied for a residence, went for an interview at the Spanish consulate in New York City, and came here. And the condition of the visa that they give you is that you're going to support yourself. So you have to show funds in the bank. You have to have your own private medical insurance. And you have to have a clean criminal record. And most importantly, you have to spend no less than 183 days a year in Spain, which you and I are in a similar business, right? We're not competitors, but we do the same thing.
Yeah, yeah.
So right, that our business is like belly to belly, right? You got to visit dealers, you got to wine them, you got to dine them, right? It's a lot of personal contact. And I figured that this is not going to be good for my business, right? Because I can't go and visit them. And, I wonder what's going to happen. So I called my dealers and I said, guys, listen, you have to understand, I am losing my mind in New York. And I have an opportunity to go to Spain. However, even though there's a 6-hour time difference, I will always be available. And you can call me any time of the day. You can email me. You can send me a text message, a smoke signal, and I will handle everything remotely. And every one of my dealers said, okay, that sounds like a great idea. Do it. And here we are.
Yeah.
I think
You're
I'm the
actually
only
growing.
agent. I think I'm the
Growing.
only agent,
Yeah.
right, in the United States that hasn't been inside of a dealership in, I don't know, 6 years.
Yeah. Yeah. And you've actually grown your business. You continue to grow which is pretty remarkable. Well, Max, I mean, you've got a really great story. I'm going to ask you one final question here. Um, what do you want to be known for? Like what is when Max Zanan's no longer here? What do you want to be known for?
You know, to be honest with you, Adam, I think you want to be known for being a good person. It's not about being known for your professional accomplishments, right? There are a lot of famous people already out there known for their professional accomplishments. And I'm not setting the bar low. I'm trying to set the bar high, right? Because being a good person is really easy to say, but it's so hard to do.
Mm-hmm.
And being a good person means that you have to positively impact others, right? You have to treat others with respect. You have to give others an opportunity. You have to help others, whatever that means. Maybe it's professional help. Maybe it's financial help. Maybe it's emotional support. right? But I think that is the only thing I want to be known for, just being a good person.
I love it. And that you are. I mean, um, you're definitely that. You're never a bad time to be around. You're probably my favorite. You are no, not probably. You're my favorite person to go to a restaurant with. If anybody here is, anybody listening, or you get a chance to meet Max in person, you want to go dine with this guy. I mean, it is an experience. You try a little bit of everything, and you're never going to leave hungry. I can say that. So, Max, what's the best way for people to find you online? How can people connect with you?
So very simple. It's my name, maxzanan.com.
Okay.
Everything is there. My phone number, my cell phone number is on the home page of the website, right? I don't have a secretary. I don't have staff. The website is my name because it's just me. I'm a one-man show, and I actually know how to use this device, right? So when it rings, I actually answer, as opposed to sending you to voicemail. That's it. That's how you get in touch with me. And of course, you can find me, on all the social media platforms.
I'll give you a little credit too before we end the call. You are always working. I you are one thing we talk about that drives us crazy when you send a text message and it takes like 2 days to get a response, or in an email. You are so responsive. You're on top of your stuff. And I know your dealers appreciate it. Your friends have to appreciate it. But that's one thing that is fact. You answer that phone. So, well, Max, I appreciate you taking some time here. This is been a wonderful conversation. You've lived a very colorful life. You've done so well for yourself. You're extremely successful. You're very humble in your pursuit of success. So continue to keep doing what you're doing. And for those listening and those that are eventually going to watch this, I appreciate you coming in. Every week I try to bring somebody on this show that's going to provide value. At the end of the day, it's becoming a better version today than we were yesterday for a more promising tomorrow. So we'll see you next time on Humans That Build. Humans That Build, real people, real work. See you next time.